Welcome to today's BTN Group in the Know webinar. Time for a travel program makeover? Build adoption and value in 2025 with content sponsored and developed by Encore Corporate Travel. I'm Marianne McNulty of the BTN Group, and I'm here just to highlight a few ways that you can control the content that you see on your screen and also engage with us. At the bottom left of your screen, you should see Ask a Question. We hope you use that early and often to type any questions to our speakers. We have reserved time at the end of the program today to answer as many questions as we can. At the very bottom of the screen, you will also see an Event Resources tab. You can pull that down to download a PDF of today's slide deck, as well as a primer about Encore Corporate Travel. And you can also link to their website from that Event Resources tab. You can come back in there anytime you want. And to download those, you just toggle down that triangle, highlight or double click on any of the PDFs and save them to your device. You may also enlarge the slides that you see on your screen from an enlarger button that you'll see at the very top right of the slides. You can click on that at any time and then just hit escape to go back. In the middle of your screen, you should see a speaker bio tab, and that is what you can click on a different page to get more information about each of our speakers and also link to their LinkedIn profile. Just remember to click back to the slides tab on your display so that you can see those slides advance automatically. At the end of today's webinar, you will see on your screen a pop-up survey. We hope you'll give us an additional 20 seconds or so to complete that. Tell us how today's content met your needs, and also suggest any speakers or topics that you're interested in the future as we prepare our programs for the rest of the year. Now it is my pleasure to introduce your moderator for today. Jake Jonathan is Vice President of Commercial Strategy for Encore Corporate Travel. Take it away, Jake.
Hi, everyone. We're really excited to have everyone in the audience here. We wanted to develop this webinar so that it's good for all spectrums of travel buyers, whether you're new to the industry or you're an industry veteran. Travel is a unique category where change management and adoption require the buy-in of hundreds or thousands of individuals. So that can make the task seem really scary because it's a big change for the organization. My two guests joining me are my customers who come from major American companies. They took on super fragmented travel programs. You'll see through their stories, low adoption, low engagement with the program, and they transformed them into very successful, high adopted programs. So we're going to go through a little bit of their stories that hopefully their experience can give you something to take away. So my first guest that I have with me is Megan Eaton. She's a category specialist at Terex. She's responsible for travel. They're a global leading equipment manufacturing firm, so cranes and lifts by Terex or Genie that you'll see around your neighborhood as there's things going on. There are 10,000 plus employees. They operate in 30 plus countries, and they're headquartered on the East Coast in the US. My second guest that I have with me, another customer of mine, is David Kelleher. He's the Director of Procurement for Hearthside Food Solutions. So if any of you have ever had Girl Scout cookies, Hearthside is usually the manufacturer behind those Girl Scout cookies. They're 10,000 plus employees, 28 plants, and they're also headquartered in the US. So some of the topics that we'll be discussing today, we try to put this in a storyline format so that it's really easy to follow the process of making a change. Firstly, the current challenges in their corporate travel programs, pre-transition, what challenges did they run into? The strategies for driving adoption and managing the change. So how exactly, did they get people's buy-in? And then the sort of real world outcome and success stories of what came out of this whole transformation. Was it worth it? Was it scary? All of that. And then, of course, we're going to try to take as many questions as we can towards the end of the session. So I'm going to start off. With those initial steps and where it started. So I'll start with you, David. So you join at Hearthside. You go in. There may or may not be a travel program in place. You're the procurement director. How did you end up with travel on your plate?
Sure. Yeah, I think really it happened as I was new to Hearthside. I had experience in a previous role managing a very large travel program. But when I came into Hearthside and initially just needed to travel to visit some of the plants, started to ask people, hey, how do I go about booking? What are some of the processes? And, I could ask 5 people what I needed to do to book travel, and I probably ended up with 6 different answers. And it became apparent to me very quickly that we really did not have a formal travel program at Hearthside. And so that just raised my antenna. But then also just being a procurement director, I started digging a little bit deeper to understand what our spend was. And it became apparent to me that, it was a large spend that we have with travel. And, I wanted to make sure that we had it managed so we were getting the best value out of our travel dollars that we had.
Makes sense. And then Megan, over to you. I know that you have a little bit of a different story background beginning with travel. So how did that start with you? How did you run into the travel category?
Yeah, pretty much the exact opposite. David went in, he knew what questions to ask. He had that experience. I, on the other hand, was only an intern. So needless to say, I wasn't exactly traveling for business. The project was more handed to me as an opportunity for me to learn about different sectors of the business. Travel touches a lot of different areas of business. It touches finance, risk, sourcing, obviously. So it was more of an opportunity for me. And then hopefully at the end, I could, provide a recommendation.
Okay. So the mission for you, Megan, was to, go to market, find something new. What was the first thing that you did when you were handed travel at Terex?
Yeah, so my background is in supply chain management as well as continuous improvement. So the first thing that you always do, you need to understand your baseline. You need to know where you're coming from. So I went ahead and did a current state mapping, making sure that I conducted an internal survey. I spoke with all sorts of different sectors of the business, as I previously mentioned, making sure to create a group of stakeholders that was small enough to be manageable, but also that, you're making sure to have buy-in later on throughout. So having people from finance, risk, legal, sourcing, those road warriors, those people that are traveling a lot for you and your company, as well as executives and their administrations, people that are booking travel a lot. Went ahead and, did the internal survey, make sure that I understood where they were coming from. I was listening to them, making sure that I understood their anecdotes, and more importantly, where our pain points were. So it was very clear that, the service expectations of Terex was not being met by the incumbent travel management company. So without the survey, I didn't really know what to do. So I understood from there that the service expectations needed to change. And ultimately what I saw through there was very low program adoption, as you were mentioning earlier on. Obviously, I didn't know what that meant, but I quickly understood the importance of it from a financial, but also, a duty of care perspective, more importantly.
Yeah. So for you, you had to go find out exactly what was wrong. David had a bit of a different situation, right, David? So you went, hunting to find out about travel. And then what were your next steps to get the organization to care on your behalf?
Yeah, so I really wanted to build a business case on why we needed to have a formal and a strong travel program. And so I started digging, looking for really what is our spend? Why are people using the solution? Why are they not using the solution? At the time at Hearthside, we did have a travel management company and an online booking tool. But as you said, Jake, it wasn't being used. It was a large, I'd say somebody that, quite frankly, to me, probably caters more towards the larger Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. Hearthside, I would say, is much more of a mid-major. So we probably weren't getting the attention that we needed to. I won't say probably anything about the tool was something that people said, yeah, this just isn't giving it to us. But also, we didn't have anybody internally that was managing the tool or had a relationship with the TMC. So when I went in and started looking, where is the opportunity, as I was running reports in the existing online booking tool, I looked at the spend and said, geez, this is just extremely low spend for a company the size of Hearthside. And, how can I find out what the true opportunity is? So I knew that if people want to get paid for their travel, they're booking through, or pardon me, they're putting their expense reports through Concur. So I started running some reports in Concur and noticing, hey, look at the spend that we have in the existing tool. This is what we're actually paying out for our travel spend. It looked like it ended up being about only 18% of our travel dollars were actually going through the online booking tool. So it was very apparent then that we were losing out on a strong opportunity. So similar to Megan, I started really reaching out to some of the key users of the tool, the road warriors, the executive assistants that are booking, and then also the finance team, because the credit card goes through our controller of the organization. So wanted to understand what they saw working well for a program, what wasn't working well, and then looking for those opportunities. And even part of that opportunity, taking a look at our travel policy. The travel policy was last updated in 2012. And here I was looking at this, at the travel program in 2022, 23. So I knew there'd be an opportunity there just to really do a lot of cleanup. And then really trying to sell that to look for where can we get support for this. And what do we need to build the solution? And even as I was selling this program, I like to share this story, how I was able to get the attention of our executive committee. As I was running the reports in the existing tool, I realized that we had about $40,000 in unused tickets and airline credits under the existing tool. And it became apparent to me as I reached out and looking at building a new program, saying to the leaders, hey, if we have $40,000 on this tool and only 18% of our spend goes through it, how much are we actually losing, or what's that visibility to all that other spend, that 80% of the spend that we don't even see all that online, or the airline credits and the unused tickets. And it was amazing just seeing the look on people's faces as they realized, yeah, there's a great opportunity for this. And then, as Megan said, we also have the duty of care, which I think is really critical. And we can talk about that in a few minutes as well, just based on what happened last night in DC. So a lot of opportunities on how we built a business case, and it was easy to get the support to move forward.
And then Megan, so quantifying that for sure, David, you put it in dollar figures, you're going to get the support of the executives. Megan, for you, again, this was already sort of decided by Terex that it's time to fix something. So you mentioned that you spoke to as many people as you could, right? You were learning. Who did you speak to and what did you hear?
Oh, yeah, I spoke with lots of different folks. I mean, personally, I needed to understand the travel industry, but also those pain points, right? I would say primarily I spent time with the executive admins and the road warriors. So, those people that are traveling a lot. From the road warriors, I heard a lot of very frustrated stories of just, a lack of trust with the incumbent TMC. There was, 2 to 3 hour hold times before someone would even pick up the phone. And that was when, there was some sort of incident at the airport where their flight was delayed and they needed to rebook quickly. So, slowly just over time, they lost that trust with the TMC. They knew or felt as though they weren't there to support them. So it just added to the stress of travel, which is never a good thing. And then on the executive administration side, that was more of, the frustration of not getting timely responses, especially with, Terex the executive team does a lot of international travel. So making sure that you have that second pair of eyes on it, as, the Encore agents do, just looking at all international tickets at least, once, twice over, making sure everything looks good so that, you can prevent those mistakes. It was just not being done by the incumbent TMC, which ultimately just led to a lack of trust overall.
Okay, so the decision then was, go to RFP, we got to find something else. One of the most important questions, and I'll stick with you, Megan, for a minute. What were you looking for in a TMC? So, I mean, clearly the issue there was service on your end, but what were the number one traits that, as you evaluated whoever you may have brought to the table, ultimately made you make a decision, and what was that you were looking for?
Yeah, it was pretty much, I would say, a 50-50 split between looking at the service, the SLA metrics that, you need to make sure that you're focusing on, but also the technology. So I'll focus on the service side for a moment, making sure that you have those SLAs in your contracts and that, your executive team has overlooked them. This is things that look like, an 80% answer rate within 60 seconds, say, making sure that you're holding your TMC accountable, but more importantly, that your TMC wants to do those things for you. They want to provide that service for you. And then on the technology side, the incumbent tool that we were using was, it was very clunky. It wasn't very pleasing to the eyes. So having an online booking tool that is very pleasing to the eye, has a great user interface, really easy to, look, and it's very intuitive. Making sure that that training is available was definitely necessary. There was a lot of, lack of training on the traveler side for Terex. So making sure that they understood the importance of a travel program, how to use the online booking tool, why to use the online booking tool. That's all something that I needed the TMC to provide, especially since I was so green. But of course, because they're the subject matter experts. So both the service side and the technology side are the really two critical pieces that I looked at.
Makes sense. And then David, on your end, you're preparing this RFP. You're a veteran in the industry. You've come from a big travel program before. You've evaluated Hearthside. What is it that you're looking for when you're going out to market?
Yeah, I think everything that Megan said. Obviously, we want the technology, we want the support, and we want the service. And on top of that, what I was looking for, as mentioned, extremely low adoption rate that we had at Hearthside. So I wanted to be able to find someone that was really going to partner with me to help ensure the adoption of the program. Everything from, hey, if you need help looking at the travel policy, we'll support you on building out that travel policy. We'll support you on the training side. We'll support you on the support side. Do we have a program then that we're going to have a VIP line for the executive assistants or for our senior leaders on the program? So I think it was extremely comprehensive program that I was looking for on being able to roll out, because I knew that I only had one opportunity to make this program a success. And if we didn't deliver a strong program right out of the gate, we were going to lose momentum immediately. And Megan mentioned a word a couple minutes ago that I wrote down and circled, but I want to focus on is trust. I wanted to have a travel management partner that I could trust, but just as importantly, that my end users and the travelers could trust as well.
Very good. I'm gonna move off of the RFP and we're gonna go into launch, because I'm sure there's a lot of people in the audience wondering about the actual transition process. It seems like, okay, that's scary. I got to train everyone. We got to roll out a new tool or a new service, whatever it may be. What would you say? I'm going to combine kind of two questions in one here. Who were key players internally to rolling out a really successful launch? And David, I'll start with you. Who were the key players that you worked with in the company that helped you roll out really well? And then what were the big keys to making it go smoothly, or as smoothly as possible?
Yeah, I think the key players were just who I reached out to even ahead of time was the road warriors, as well as the executive assistants and the finance team. And why I wanted to do that then, they were the ones that we wanted to gather all the requirements from for the request for proposal. But then also, as we were working to implement, and we skipped over a whole lot of the part, but obviously we awarded the business to Encore for everything that we had just talked about. I wanted a partner that was going to be there with me side by side, that I could trust. And when I'm saying that side by side, what was critical as we were building out the solution and kind of that configuration to build the tool, making it more to Hearthside's liking, we were doing the building, the configuration, and the testing. I had executive admins and I had some of those road warriors that were actually in that tool under I guess we'll call it UAT, or the user acceptance testing. And they were testing the tool. And so they were able to insert what they liked, what they didn't like, and provide some feedback there. And I think that was really critical, as part of the change management. A lot of people call change management, either it's training or it's communication. To me, change management is really, it at its basic is starting and program management from the beginning. But now that we had those executive admins and we had those road warriors feeling like they actually were responsible and owning the program to roll it out, it wasn't just procurement or David Kelleher saying, hey, look at this great new solution that I've rolled out. Here it is, everybody get on board. It was the executive admins that were talking with other executive admins. They were talking with their senior leaders. It was the road warriors that were talking with other road warriors. And they were playing the program up because they knew that they had a personal stake in it. And I think that's really critical to get them to have buy-in and feel like they were owning that, again, as opposed to just somebody in procurement that only cares about the dollars. And it clearly is not that point. And then also we talked about, and what was missed maybe, is I wanted to make a big splash when I rolled a program out. We got rid of the old TMC. Bringing in a new TMC and bringing in Encore was critical, because it wasn't going to be, hey, look, we're rolling out a new travel policy and we've re-signed the contract with the existing guy. People would yawn and say, okay, what's different? And by being able to bring in a new TMC, a new travel policy, it energized the program as well.
Yeah, and I remember both of your implementations vividly. Megan, over to you. If you think of that whole process from, that kickoff call to launch, what were some of the, I guess, both people involved, or roles and departments involved, and what were some of the moments that stand out to you as making it really successful?
Yeah, I could not agree more with David. Having finance, your executive assistants, and then your road warriors, those are your critical group there. Of course, you want to make sure that your group is manageable enough so that you can continuously engage them and, different timelines and updates on the project. But having those people involved and having it feel as though they have ownership and stake in the project is so critical, because they have that word of mouth throughout the company. So that's absolutely critical. Can't agree more. Those are definitely the people that I had involved throughout. We, like you mentioned, we had a live webinar, so the training was absolutely critical. We were able to get vast majority of our travelers on the live webinar at once, which was amazing. And then Encore did a great job of, walking through their tool, but it was more about all of our travelers knowing that, Encore was there to support us. And they were there to answer their questions via email, via chat, via phone call, making sure that they knew where those resources were. That was the key part. As well, we also had a great communications plan. Definitely, I think part of gaining that trust back is communication, because when there's no communication, either nothing's changing, nothing's happening, or something of the like. So we had a communication plan that, we utilized the templates that Encore provided us. And then we had a really active communications team for the Terex side. And so, he added the little Terex touch to it, making sure that, people knew the timelines, they knew important updates. So that was very critical as well. So the live webinar, as well as, just making sure that everyone knew where Encore was, how to reach them, as well as the tools that were available to them via the online booking tool Z. And then, of course, having that really solid communication plan.
I actually remember the Terex communication team being a standout communication team from as far as implementations that I've seen. They were really engaged from the beginning, so it was super helpful for us as well. The kind of other side of this question, right? We're talking about what made it successful. I hope that some people in the audience can relate to maybe this next question. But Megan, I'll start with you first on this one. What was your biggest fear, and how did that reconcile in reality? So we're about to launch, day before or morning of, whatever you want to call it. What were you? I mean, obviously we all want everything to go well, but what was in your head as a fear, and how did that end up kind of coming to fruition?
Sure. Well, I think my biggest challenge personally was just not knowing the travel industry. So I had to, really pull all sorts of different people in to learn all about, what to ask, what to do, what to focus on, program adoption versus, the travel policy, what to have. So that was my biggest hurdle personally. But, utilizing your RFP participants. And obviously Encore was able to, support all of my bajillion questions that I asked. As far as my biggest fear with relaunch, I would say that just not getting anyone excited, or, people not being able to see the change that was hoping. So I think David kind of touched on it earlier, but we were using a tool that was very clunky for our online booking tool. And so I wanted people to be really excited about this new opportunity, this new tool. And so I think that we mitigated, any fears that I had of people not really wanting to change or not seeing the purpose or the need to change over to a new tool. And we were able to mitigate that just by, Encore doing their training, making sure that they were talking all about the different tool and the benefits. And there's a live chat feature in, hey, it's not a robot, it's a real person that's talking to you, as well as over the phone, over email. There's so many different, ways to support a traveler that we just didn't have. So, just mitigating that through communicating all of the different opportunities and the support that your TMC should be providing you, that, tried to mitigate as far as I could with that fear.
And then David, for you, was there something, right before launch that you were concerned about? And then how did that end up coming to reality? Because the fear of change can often be a lot more painful than the change itself. So how did that go for you, David?
Yeah, I think really, Jake, I did not have a whole lot of fear. I was 100% confident in the program. I was 100% in Encore as being my partner. I think my biggest fear, though, was just how the employees would react to this. Harside's a 15-year-old company, but we have grown significantly through acquisition. And so in that acquisition, a lot of different companies coming together and doing their own thing. And so it wasn't, the program that we were offering. It was more just how people would react. And now folks being told that, hey, you do actually have to have, or do have to book through the new TMC with the online booking tool. And I think very quickly, those concerns were allayed then. Jake, you sat down next to me, and as we had several of the training sessions and the number of people that we had attend, the fear and the concern went away very quickly. But, it was great because people were asking very legitimate questions and they were interested. And it always makes me realize when I think back on this, the team wants to do the right thing. They were not intentionally previously going off and not using the tool. And nobody knew that they were supposed to, or nobody really said, hey, here's the benefit to doing it. And so those fears within the first day and seeing the number of people that attended, the number of people that filled out their profiles and started using the tool was exciting. And that went away pretty quickly.
I want to say, like, just for everyone listening, I personally remember, after one of I think we did 3 webinar trainings for you guys, David. And I remember like calling you immediately after we hung up and, virtually high-fiving you for the attendance, because I was blown away. We had so many people show up. So we're all really happy about that. We're getting to the end of the session pre-Q&A, but I do want to talk about the results because that's really important. I'm going to start with David on the kind of outcome, because the numbers speak for themselves. But what did you see as coming out from that? So we remember that you had a sub 20% program adoption pre-conversion, and David, what did you see come out of that on your end?
Yeah, so certainly as folks can see on the slide, that top bullet point, Jake, if you recall when we went through the RFP process and the presentations, I told you folks that I wanted to get over 90% adoption online usage. And there we see the number at 91%. And, it was an extremely sharp spike all the way up within the first 3 to 6 months. So we do have that. The stakeholder education was critical. So I think those were the main impacts and what we see here in the usage of the program, on how people are utilizing it, the responses and the feedback that we're getting from the travelers, I think is really important. And then the impact, I brought it up in the first time that I mentioned, but duty of care. We got another, a plug for the program. I was on a call with our senior leaders today. And just even before we kicked off, I said, hey, just a public service announcement, guys. Just want to make sure everybody's aware that no Hearthside employees were directly impacted by the situation that happened in DC, the tragedy there. And I said, this is one of the reasons why we want folks to use the online booking tool or use Encore so we can track where our travelers are. And I already got a couple other emails from folks thanking me, and because the airport, like I mentioned, was one of our major airports for a plant. So it just reinforces to our leaders on why we are doing this and that we made the right decision to formalize a program.
Very good. No, I'm super proud when I look at the screen right now and I see what we've accomplished together. Megan, over to you. I never thought there was a world. Terex was not an online booking company at the time, but you want to talk about what you kind of got out of this and what you've noticed internally?
Yeah, I've definitely noticed internally that people love the online booking tool. I think, they were resorting to trying to contact agents because our previous tool was so clunky, but that wasn't their preference. Their preference was they like to use the online booking tool. So our, excluding VIPs, our online adoption is at a whopping 94%. So, huge success there. That obviously, is a huge cost out or cost cut by, utilizing the online booking tool. And I would say, more importantly to that, as David touched on, prioritizing that duty of care, Terex's number one value is always safety. So making sure that our travelers are safe, we know that they're safe. That's always, your number one. And Encore does a great job of, providing that support and that trust with that. Of course, as I mentioned before, during the, internal survey that I did so long ago, and, people's experience and the very low satisfaction with the incumbent at the time, it just exponentially increased with switching to, the online booking tool that we use today with the Z and making sure that everyone is happy. That's just always my number one concern, is making sure that people know that the tool is available. They know that, if they can't use the online tool for whatever reason, the Encore agents there are, they're always there to support them, making sure that there's lots of different areas that they can communicate. So I would say my number one is obviously the safety side, but, having all of the travelers not so stressed and, they're actually happy to book travel now, and they're not so, stressed out about lots of different things that can go wrong when booking travel. That's my number one pride.
That's great. So I'm super happy to hear it from both of you. I'm grateful to have made two new friends and partners in this industry that I can work with for a long time. We all know each other. It's really fun to have great clients like you guys. I'm going to move to Q&A now. I'm glancing at the Q&As in the chat. So I'm going to ask a question that I saw pop up a couple of times from a couple of different people. So I'm only using first names, but both Robert and Annabella have asked the question. I'll give a brief answer, but I'm going to extend on their question, which is both of them asked, Megan and David, do you both still own the travel program? So were you responsible for just buying it, or do you still own it? So I can tell you that they both still own it, but maybe David, I'll let you handle this one. What do you think is the difference between when travel is procured and handed off, or when it's procured and that person remains the owner? Maybe a difference in the procurement process or something like that.
Yeah, I think this is one where, as you said, Jake, I still own it. But being the one that really helped update the travel policy, put together the KPIs or the SLAs for the program, as I mentioned, the road warriors and the executive assistants, excuse me, including them, well, I definitely feel an ownership of the program. I have it set up as sustainable. So if I take a different role, it's going to continue. But I'm the one who's ensuring monitoring those on a monthly basis in the reports. And I think it's much more effective that way for me to be able to do that instead of handing it off to an insights and analytics team or somebody else who might not have the depth and the breadth of the program.
Yeah, and we have some people I mean, I agree with you. I really like when the buyer is actually the owner. It kind of changes how much of the value you're capturing when you're making a purchase, right? Is it just I buy it and I hand it off and it's not really my problem after, or do I need to live with this? I think you'll get a lot more investment when someone has to live with it. Another question that's popped up a couple of times in the chat is around timing. So Megan, I'll throw this one to you. How long was the implementation, and how long was the implementation, and how long was the RFP process? So some people I think want to know about that. Megan, I will advise you we could exclude legal negotiations, just maybe the actual process of gathering info. So do you want to talk about that, Megan?
Yeah, of course. So from start to end, let me just preface with say, obviously very green to everything. So it took me a little longer to make sure that I had the right stakeholders engaged. If you exclude one, you kind of have to start the whole process over. So end to end for me personally was about a year from RFP all the way to implementation, which relatively speaking, my background's in direct components. So a year is actually pretty dang good. As far as like collecting RFP, throwing out the RFI as well as the RFQ, that part was pretty quick. I would say a couple months. I mean, you obviously have to do some research to make sure you know who you want to participate in your RFP, which that I would say takes the most amount of time. But as far as, creating your RFI, that's relatively easy, going through the responses. As long as you have some knowledge of what your pain points are, you can formulate your RFI based off of what your pain points are. If a service metric of whatever percent answered within whatever time frame, if that's really important to you and the TMC says that they can't do it, well, then you probably don't need to have an RFQ from them. So depending on your pain points, you can balance your RFI, but minus legal negotiations and my greenness to the fields, I would say probably a 6-month time frame is pretty accurate. When you say, Jake?
Yeah, that's fair enough. And the implementation itself was not long, 2.5 months tops.
Yeah.
The implementation wasn't long. It was the RFP process was longer, but you did a great job. You really researched, which was super important. I have another question here that I'm going to take because I participated in both of your implementations. So I want to talk about this. So one of the questions from Manveer was, what advice would you give to be best prepared for change management? So I'm going to give 3 separate areas of advice here. And I think I'll just get some nods from David and Megan. One of them was the comms plan. So the communications plan was critical, making sure it explains the why we're doing this. So David alluded to this earlier when he said he wanted the stakeholder buy-in. If you just do no one likes to hear, here's the new tool, here's the new program, you have to use it because I said so. So for us, we've had clients spin that message in a variety of different ways. We're making this change because we want to work with a woman-owned partner, or we're making this change because we want to upgrade technology and provide you something better. But there's the explaining the why and then the timing of that. So communicating in advance. So we usually recommend a communication goes out 2 weeks prior, then the day before launch, then the day of launch. You can register now. Kind of having that down is really important. And you can always reach out after if you want some help on that. And then the other ones were good webinar attendance. If you can really get people to sign on board, make it mandatory, but people be there for the training and have the opportunity to ask questions so that they felt bought in by the time and comfortable by the time it's done. And 3, this isn't probably always going to be offered, but for both of these clients, we did it. But an on-site presence is so important. I wasn't at the Terex one, but my team spent time with the executives, like the C-level people, the executive assistants, the finance people. Like it was really like, make it a real partnership. And same thing at Hearthside. We spent a lot of time in the office, just spending time with the people, because travel is a personal category and it's a partnership, and you can't just do it's just a phone number you reach. You want people to feel like they know each other. The next one is, does your travel program include group travel? So I'll let either of you that wishes to take that. So do I have any takers from my friends here?
Yeah, well, Hearthside has very little group travel. So if we wanted to roll it in, we could. That wasn't a concern. But at this time, it just isn't something that we have a need for.
Megan? I know we've discussed
Yeah,
with
we
your,
have.
with your people a few times.
Yeah, so we'd have some group travel, especially at the executive level, having, annual meetings or whatever that may be. We haven't utilized the tools yet because we had some cutbacks in travel, but Encore was very ready to help us out with that and organize everything for us.
Another question that came out, I didn't want to take any time to kind of push Encore here. So Megan, a question that came up was, what OBT are you using? So maybe you want to answer that one, Megan?
Yeah, powered right there on the screen, powered by Z. So Z is, Encore's online booking tool. I find it very easy to use, very pleasing to the eye. The user interface is just really easy. And I found that, as David mentioned earlier, during the user acceptance testing, which is just when you gather a bunch of your internal people to look at the tool, ask any questions, make any recommendations, I felt an overwhelming, happiness towards the tool and excitement to switch over.
And then we've got a couple questions about the kind of scope of your programs. So there are questions about global. So Hearthside is a primarily domestic program. Terex is a little different. So Terex right now, what are we running, Megan? U.S., Canada, Mexico, with a lot of international travel as well. So they're more close to a more global program. Hopefully that answers that. We have another question. Was there any resistance? This is actually a very interesting one. Was there any resistance to bringing in a new TMC? And what were the main concerns of people adopting one? So I'll start with you, Megan, on this one.
Yeah, there was some resistance. There was some particular, more on the lines of executive administration, that they had that white glove service with the previous TMC. And so, they didn't want to let that go. They were, if you want those blue M&Ms sitting on your chair, they would have that. But we were obviously paying a premium for that. So the most important part for mitigating that was just Encore speaking with those particular, administrations, and just ensuring like, hey, you can have the same service at, like a fraction of the cost or whatever that may be. But it's just, creating that trust. It's very different in the sense that, the rest of the company was more along the lines of, yeah, we want to switch. Let's, why didn't we do it yesterday? And then there's like this small little group of people that had some resistance, but that's really where Jake was mentioning that, they sat down, made sure to, calm any nerves that were there ahead of time, making sure that the support will be there and maybe even better.
I remember that very specifically, that you guys had pretty strong support for a very small group of people. And that small group of people was like, well, we don't want to change anything. It's scary, it's change, but that was exactly the job, Megan. You're right. It was sitting with them and going, I promise we'll take care of you. David, for you, what was the resistance on your end?
Yeah, I think really the major resistance was, now I'm losing control. If I'm booking, and we said 80% of the folks are booking outside of the tool, I'm losing control. We have 10,000 people in the company, and we have 10,000 travel buyers, so they can all do it better, or they think they can. And I think the benefit of having Encore, we had confidence in that trust that we talked about, but we were able to sit down with our travelers and walk them through, patiently, with confidence, that, hey, really, when you're going on to Expedia and you're saying that you can find that ticket for $60 cheaper on United, well, no, Hearthside doesn't book basic economy tickets, things like that, or the hotel, here's the ups and the extras that you get. So we were able to get rid of some of that fear. And quite frankly, the other one is, am I going to lose my loyalty points if I book, use the online booking tool? And now I'm just going directly to United and, silver, gold, platinum, or, whatever. Am I going to lose that and I won't get my points? No, guys, 100%. You build your profile, you put your loyalty numbers in your profile with NZ, You're going to continue to get your status. You're going to continue to get your loyalty points. And those were just, basic, easy ones. But I think those were really the two that we had to address. And we were able to address it quickly and effectively.
So we're gonna run out of time, so I'm gonna kind of walk us out. However, there is one more question for Aiden in the chat that I want to address because it is a good question. How do you set up payments for travel? Example, employees prefer using their own credit cards for incentives like points, miles, etc., to benefit them. That portion of it, our tool offers a lot of flexibility around on purpose. So we can have three options. You can have a forced central card for all of their air bookings. You can have a central card preloaded, but they can replace it with a personal card, should you allow that. Or you can have it that there's no central card at all and everyone puts in their own credit card. And you can have that for different user groups as well. So hopefully, Aiden, that helps you out. The other thing was that you were saying, that people who found a better deal online, David alluded to that. The job is education. I mean, that's kind of what David and my team work together really closely on, is making sure that, I think, David, you had once called it like calm reassurance or something like that, right? Where you calmly explain to the person exactly why we want you to book this content, even if it's maybe $10 more expensive, that you get better cancellation terms or whatever. So that's really critical. So I'm going to, unfortunately, we're out of time for questions. That being said, my contact info is on the screen. I have really easy access to these two if you have any more questions for them. So we're really grateful for everyone who joined. I hope that this was helpful, and I wish we had 5 more hours to cover questions and have an interactive experience with everyone. But if anyone has anything they want to ask, reach out to me, LinkedIn, email, whatever you want, and we'll make sure we take care of it. Okay. So I'm going to throw it back to Marianne. Thank you all so much for joining.
Great. Thanks to you, Jake, for really leading a great discussion with the speakers, and for them, to Megan and David, for telling their stories of how they went through this journey. There are a couple of questions that pertain to Encore's partnership and relationships, and Encore will get back to those questions via email. But as Jake mentioned, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to any of them. Today's webinar was actually recorded, and you can go back in and listen to the replay by clicking the link that you used or from our BTN site. Also, we do hope you'll complete the exit survey, a brief exit survey. Tell us how we did today in answering your questions, meeting your needs, and also tell us of programs that are of interest to you in the future. We want to thank our speakers again, and also thanks to Encore for sponsoring today's event. And if you want to learn more about Encore, you can feel free to download the PDF that you'll find in the event resources and link to their site. Thanks again. Goodbye.
Hi, everyone.